Long before Europeans arrived on the continent, the land that is now the United States was inhabited by numerous indigenous peoples. They were part of large cultural and social groups who practiced agriculture, hunting, and fishing. Civilizations like the Mayans, Incas, and Aztecs did not inhabit what is now the U.S., but their relatives, the Native American tribes, developed their own unique cultures and languages. Over time, European countries began to colonize America. Initially, these were the British, Spanish, French, and Dutch, each bringing their own traditions, religions, and political systems. The colonial era and the emergence of the United States. In the late 15th century, Christopher Columbus opened up the New World, sparking the European exploration and colonization of the Americas. The British set up the first permanent settlement in Jamestown, Virginia, in 1607. Over the following decades, more colonies were established along the eastern seaboard of North America. These colonies were often founded for religious freedom, economic opportunities, or as a result of imperial ambitions. The relationship between the colonists and their British rulers began to sour as the British government imposed taxes and laws without the consent of the colonists. The slogan, "No taxation without representation," became a rallying cry for those who felt that they should have a voice in their own governance. The American Revolution. In 1775, the tension between the British and the American colonists erupted into violence, leading to the American Revolution. The colonists, seeking independence from British rule, formed the Continental Army under General George Washington. After years of brutal fighting, with the help of French allies, the American forces defeated the British in 1781. The Treaty of Paris in 1783 formally ended the war and recognized the sovereignty of the United States of America. The new nation faced significant challenges in establishing a stable government. The Articles of Confederation, the first attempt at a national framework, proved ineffective. In 1787, the U.S. Constitution was drafted in Philadelphia, establishing a federal system of government with checks and balances. The Bill of Rights, which guaranteed fundamental freedoms, was added in 1791. The expansion of the United States. In the 19th century, the United States began to expand westward, driven by the idea of manifest destiny, the belief that Americans were destined to spread across the continent. This led to the acquisition of vast territories, including the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, which doubled the size of the country. As settlers moved west, they encountered Native American tribes who had lived on the land for centuries. The U.S. government pursued policies of forced relocation and assimilation, leading to tragic events such as the Trail of Tears, during which thousands of Native Americans died while being forced to move from their ancestral lands. The discovery of gold and the promise of opportunity fueled the migration of settlers to the Western territories, culminating in the California Gold Rush of 1849. As the country expanded, tensions grew between the North and the South over issues such as slavery and states' rights. The Civil War and Reconstruction. By the 1860s, these tensions reached a breaking point, and in 1861, the Southern states seceded from the Union to form the Confederacy, sparking the Civil War. The war, which lasted from 1861 to 1865, was one of the deadliest conflicts in American history, resulting in the deaths of over 600,000 soldiers. The war ended with the defeat of the Confederacy, and the abolition of slavery was enshrined in the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. However, the post-war Reconstruction period was marked by violence, racial tensions, and the difficult process of rebuilding the South. Despite the efforts to grant civil rights to freed slaves, segregation and discrimination persisted for many decades. The Industrial Revolution and the rise of the U.S. as a global power. The late 19th and early 20th centuries saw rapid industrialization in the United States. New technologies, such as the telegraph, the railroad, and the steam engine, transformed the economy and society. Large cities like New York and Chicago grew, and industries such as steel, oil, and automobiles emerged as powerful forces in the economy. The U.S. also began to assert itself on the world stage. In 1898, the U.S. defeated Spain in the Spanish-American War, acquiring territories such as Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. This marked the beginning of America's emergence as a global imperial power. The Great Depression and World War II. The 1930s brought economic hardship to the U.S., as the country plunged into the Great Depression. Unemployment soared, and many Americans faced poverty and hunger. In response, President Franklin D. Roosevelt introduced a series of economic reforms known as the New Deal, aimed at providing relief, recovery, and reform. World War II, which began in 1939, further transformed the U.S. economy. The country became the arsenal of democracy, supplying weapons and materials to the Allies. In 1941, after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States entered the war. The war effort mobilized the entire country, leading to full employment and technological advances. By the end of the war, the U.S. had emerged as one of the two superpowers, along with the Soviet Union, and the world order was irrevocably changed. The U.S. helped establish the United Nations, and its economy became the most powerful in the world. The Cold War and Civil Rights Movements. The post-World War II period was defined by the Cold War, a global struggle between the United States and the Soviet Union. The U.S. sought to contain the spread of communism, leading to conflicts such as the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the Cuban Missile Crisis. These conflicts defined much of U.S. foreign policy throughout the 20th century. Domestically, the U.S. faced significant social upheaval, particularly in the area of civil rights. African Americans, women, and other marginalized groups fought for equality and justice. The civil rights movement, led by figures like Martin Luther King Jr., achieved significant victories, including the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which outlawed discrimination. The modern era. The late 20th and early 21st centuries saw the U.S. continue to grapple with issues of race, inequality, and political division. The end of the Cold War in the 1990s marked a new era in U.S. foreign policy, as the country became the world's sole superpower. The 9/11 attacks in 2001, however, brought a new focus on terrorism and global security. The U.S. launched wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and domestic politics became increasingly polarized. In recent years, the United States has faced challenges related to immigration, healthcare, and the environment. The election of the first African American president, Barack Obama, in 2008, was a historic moment, but it also highlighted the deep divisions that remain in American society. Today, the United States remains a nation defined by its diversity, its commitment to democracy, and its role as a global leader. It continues to confront both internal and external challenges, but its history of perseverance and reinvention offers hope for the future.